the federal court in San Antonio to ban enforcement of this law against Elections Administrator Longoria because it violates her First Amendment rights to protected, truthful speech. And not just the First Amendment rights of Isabel Longoria, but the rights of every single election worker, county clerk, county elections administrator across this great state. At today's hearing, which was very lengthy, we learned three very important things. The first thing we learned is that the state's reasons for making it a crime for elections officials, public officials, to encourage eligible folks to apply to vote by mail make absolutely no sense. Time and time again, we've heard from the Secretary of State's office that encouraging folks to vote by mail, those communications coming from elections officials will confuse voters. But today, the Secretary of State's star witness, Keith Ingram, who is the head of elections at the Secretary of State, could not offer any explanation as to why any of that made any sense at all. And frankly, I think it is belittling to Harris County residents and Texans. I believe that they're smarter than that, and they will not be confused by folks encouraging them to do something that is absolutely legal if they're eligible to vote by mail. The second thing we learned is that if the court grants this injunction and temporarily bans enforcement of this part of Texas's restrictive voting law, then our elections administrator is going to take action. She's going to do what she can to educate folks throughout Harris County and to encourage them about their option, if they're eligible, to vote by mail. And that's important because in Texas, you can vote by mail not just if you're over the age of 65, but also many other groups of folks, including our veterans and our neighbors who are disabled. And it's important for government officials to be able to encourage those folks because it may be substantially more difficult for our neighbors with disabilities to make it to a poll site like the rest of the folks in Harris County can. So it's important for officials to be able to encourage them to exercise their lawful right to vote by mail. And if the court grants our order today, that's exactly what our elections administrator will do. And the third thing that we learned today is that the court, Judge Rodriguez out in San Antonio, federal district court, will rule today. Now, one thing we saw throughout the entirety of this hearing is that Judge Rodriguez showed a very in-depth knowledge and understanding of every last one of the very complex constitutional issues that he was presented with. Not just the legal issues, but also the factual issues. For lack of a better term, the judge definitely did his homework before the hearing today. So we were encouraged to see that, and we're confident that the judge is going to issue a thoughtful decision on this matter. And what the judge indicated to the parties during the hearing today is that he will issue an order in this case today, either granting our request for a preliminary injunction or denying it. But be expecting to see that here today. And if granted, this order would ban criminal prosecution against Elections Administrator Isabel Longoria for encouraging folks to vote by mail. And we hope that if that's granted, it will send a signal to not just the Attorney General's office, but to folks throughout the state of Texas so that they think twice before trying to prosecute or criminalize our elections workers who are simply trying to do their job and encourage folks to vote by mail if they're eligible to do so. Now, this may have been a lot of information, but the short of it is, if you're listening to me today, Harris County residents, vote. Participate in the democratic process. Early voting starts this Monday, and if you're going to choose, if you're eligible to do so, and you're going to choose to vote by mail, the deadline for you to get your application to vote by mail to the elections administrator is February 18th. Now, I would also encourage the folks who are watching to consider voting by mail if they're eligible to do so, but until we get this ridiculous law thrown out, I may be prosecuted for doing so. So what I'm going to tell you to do is know your options and please participate in the democratic process. I look forward to seeing the decision that is rendered by Judge Rodriguez today in the case, and regardless of what happens in the short term, we're going to continue to fight this fight to get this part of SB 1 invalidated, thrown out, because it does nothing but chill the speech of our elections workers who are so committed to ensuring that we have access to the democratic process, not just here in Harris County, but throughout the state of Texas. And with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
During the hearing, the high number of rejected mail-in ballot applications, mail-in ballots was discussed. If an injunction is granted, how would being able to solicit mail-in ballots impact those rejections?
That's a great question. So the question was, during the hearing, there was discussion about the high number of mail-in ballot applications that have been rejected across the state of Texas because of the new laws under SB 1. And if the order is granted, how will that impact that? Well, what we've seen is the Secretary of State's office has taken the position that any official communication from a governmental official, a public official, elections official, could confuse people and could run afoul of this law. So if the order is issued today, it's going to give our elections administrator here in Harris County broader opportunities to connect with people and to inform them about not just their ability to vote by mail, but the requirements to apply to vote by mail and the requirements to submit their ballot. We've seen a bunch of confusion. As I mentioned, my office has gotten many calls about election workers who are terrified about potentially being prosecuted, but also from voters, right, who have had their applications rejected and who are nervous about how SB 1 impacts them. So if the court issues its order today, granting this preliminary injunction and temporarily banning enforcement of SB 1, you're going to see a county elections administration office that is going to have broader opportunities to reach out to folks without fear of being prosecuted for violating this new part of SB 1.
When you said today for the judge to put something out there, what time do you expect that to be today?
Well, you can never be sure with judges, but one thing Judge Rodriguez did say is that he's not sure that he's going to have it by close of business at 5 p.m. I'm just grateful to the judge and the folks in that court who are working hard, and the hard deadline that he gave us was by 11:59 p.m. today. So we can expect to see something not by the close of business, but likely this evening. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.